Well, hello there. Today we're cracking Canuckleheads with Dave Tomlinson of Sportsnet, color commentator with John Shorthouse on the TV games for the Vancouver Canucks. And we'll get down and dirty and deep into what's happening in this preseason as the Canucks try to duplicate or improve on what was a 109-point season last year. Pretty damn impressive under Rick Tocchet. Couple of quick little plug notes before we jump on with Tommy Boy. Don't forget, you can always check things out, these interviews, other interviews about Utah, Los Angeles, Pacific Division, the Seattle Kraken, the Vancouver Canucks at VancouverHockeyInsider.com and SeattleHockeyInsider.com. Also, Simmerpuck is the YouTube channel where you can check all this out. You can also follow me at Simmerpuck at Twitter/X. Enough of that. Let's jump on with Tommy Boy. Hey, there he is. I call him Tommy Boy. He's Tomer. He's DT. He's Dave Tomlinson. He's an outstanding broadcaster and a former professional hockey player. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Of course, we cross paths in Seattle and Vancouver as well. So, I don't know if you know this. We share a birthday.
What?
Yes,
Really?
May 8th.
Yeah, that I know my birthday's on the 8th. I was
That's
hoping
my
yours was
birthday.
too.
That's my birthday.
Fellow Torian.
Yes, fellow
Yeah.
Torian. Exactly right.
I got a tattoo right here with the little Taurus. What about
What?
yourself?
Look at you, you stubborn,
Yeah.
creative bastard.
And
Hey,
more.
at some point, I want to get you back in here and talk about your cool career in Germany, winning championships, your 42 NHL games, your one goal, all those different things. But this is not the time for it. This is preseason, coming off 109 points for the Vancouver Canucks, and we want to get into this, get right into it. And of course, we're also both looking very intellectual with our little glasses on today. So
Yeah. Yeah.
let's take
New
it.
twist.
Let's take advantage. Let's start with Rick Tocchet. He's hired back in late January of 2023. He finishes out that season. He takes over last year. No muss, no fuss. Not surprising for the guy who's 10th all time, by the way, in NHL penalty minutes. He doesn't put up
Yeah.
with a lot of malarkey. Just talk about how this team has adapted and as they enter this second full season with him.
Well, you used the word adapted, and I think he's adapted to coaching again after his previous stint in Arizona and realizing that it is like a team mentality and it goes with the coaching staff as well. I'm just amazed at how often he's talking to players in practice, after practice, during the game. It's constant communication. And one of the things I think that he's so good at is letting players know what they want from them. He doesn't come at things in a negative, say, don't do this, don't do that, don't do this. It's, we need you to do this. We'd like you to do this. Keep doing this. And when you're a player, you keep hearing, this is what we would like to see from you. This is what will help us. This is all in a positive frame, as if your next shift is going to help us win the hockey game versus don't give the puck away. Don't do that. Don't do that. All of a sudden, it's like all these don'ts are coming at you and you don't want to handle the puck. So for Rick Tocchet, I think he's just learned throughout his playing time, throughout his coaching time, through his broadcasting, and then coming back to coaching, that it really is a two-way street. He holds the hammer for everything, and he isn't afraid to use it. But the players respect what he's done at every level. The Stanley Cups, you mentioned the penalty minutes, and then his coaching acumen. So I give him a ton of credit and the coaching staff for the fantastic turnaround from when he took the team over to how they did last year.
And he's tactful with the media. And the one that stands out for me was training camp last year when he had his first full camp and Dakota Joshua. He's like, this guy's got to get it going. Like he
Yeah,
singled him out. I'm sure he probably, if I, thought about it long enough, singled out others potentially, but I just remember that. And it was like, oh, geez, this Joshua kid's in trouble, right? And what happens? Look at how he progressed throughout the course of the season. Unfortunately, right now, he had the testicular cancer. He's dealing with that. So he's been delayed coming back to start this season.
yeah.
I understand the prognosis is all good there. But to get back to the original point, in terms of moving forward for Dakota, um, getting back to the point, Tocchet communicates, as you pointed out, with his guys, but he also kind of does a nice job kind of behind the scenes.
And I don't think he says anything to the media that he doesn't say to his players, right? He's not one of these guys who will come out and grandstand for the media and then deal with it afterwards. I think he's already spoken with the player honestly, and that's the biggest quality I think for him is he's been honest. And when we look at Dakota Joshua last year, yeah, he was called out in training camp for maybe his fitness not being where it needed to be, or trying to simplify, use his body and his frame. And then I think it was 9 games into the season, he was a healthy scratch.
Yeah.
And so there's the re-reminder. And then from that point onwards, he was a wrecking ball for checking. He started getting offensive chances because he was helping create turnovers when he was using his size and frame to get in on the defenseman. And then the confidence was built. So, you can take it back to training camp. You can take it into the first 15 games of the season. And then he became part of what we call that third line that did everything that the Canucks would ask for. And, that's part of the reason the Canucks had so much success.
Hey, DT, Wednesday night, hell of a comeback win for the Canucks. A sick goal by Daniel Sprong to cut
Yeah.
in and score to tie it with 14 seconds left, and then they win in overtime. And Jake Debrusk with a couple of goals. See, that was something that Canucks fans got used to last year. These dramatic late heroics, never out of games. All that
Yeah.
was just a reminder of what went on a lot last year and maybe what's ahead. I mean, it was pretty phenomenal. What did you take away from Wednesday night in Abbotsford?
Well, I thought it was typical, as you said, of Canuck team last season, even though it's a different roster and it's second, preseason game for them and everything else, but the confidence that they're never out of a game. And I think, you look at when they hand out the ice time, there's not a forward that's getting 22 minutes and everyone else is in the 18th. There's not a big spread from what their top minute guys will get as forwards and their bottom guys. And so they're using all 4 lines. They're staying fresh. You do that in the preseason anyways, but that keeps you fresher for at the end of the game. And, Daniel Sprong is looking to make his mark, signed a 1-year deal at a team-friendly number to stay in the NHL, prove he can do things. And lo and behold, he's the guy that ties it before the game runs out. And so you look at some of the depth that the Canucks have on the wings, and you think when they fully get healthy, if they can get to that point, there are a lot of guys that could make some interesting conversations for a few spots.
Quick word association. Let's blaze through it. Jake Debrusk.
Speedy, opportunistic.
Danton Heinen, Langley boy.
Smart, responsible, hard worker.
Sammy Blais, does he have a crack with this PTO?
I think that he helped himself out last game, but he's going to have to do that more. And I think that, he sees what Dakota Joshua did and how he progressed. He needs to be that as well. Like the same guy who goes in and the other team knows he's going to hit. He's going to go in. He's not going to poke for the puck. He's not going to try to create offense that's not there until he takes the body and creates a loose puck. There's a spot for a player like that on this team, but it's the consistency that they're going to need from him and coming off the knee injury and everything. He's going to get a long look here at training camp, but he's going to have to be at his best right from the start.
He's got to play like he did when he was a key bottom 6 guy for St. Louis and winning the Stanley Cup in 2019. He was a pest.
Yeah. He, when you go through a significant injury, you kind of, not going to say you hold up a little bit, but it's human nature. You're not sure if you can, throw your body into checks as well. And so you get past that hump and you realize, hey, I'm good to go. But then you've got to go. And I think that's what the coaching staff is waiting to see through the rest of training camp for him.
Lot of chit chat because of the ice time and the opportunities on the power play and getting fed pucks. But Lecker-Mackey, of course, Jonathan, the first rounder from 2022, R2, another young guy. So set them aside because they get a lot of attention. Anybody veteran wise that right now that you're like, ooh, I'm seeing something different. I'm seeing a breath of fresh air. I'm seeing this guy's going to be freaking ready to play.
Well, I mean, I think that the first guy that comes to mind for me is Jake Debrusk, and that's because I think he feels like he can be more of a focus for good things on this team as he was in Boston. Kind of some trials and tribulations there in Boston. And they've got Marchand, they have Pasternak, Bergeron from years past. Jake Debrusk's name comes after some more players, but here he's going to be front line, and with good reason. And I think that he appreciates that. I think that he feels he's grown into that type of player, and now getting the opportunity, if he continues to play with Elias Pettersson, he's going to get the puck on a stick where he wants it, right near the net. So we'll see if that continues to happen. It would certainly be a real positive signing for the Vancouver Canucks if they bolster that line. And then you always know what you're going to get from Besser and JT Miller. But, I think about Jake Debrusk, and I think about a guy that had other places that he could have signed, decided to come to Vancouver, West Coast guy, if you want to include, Edmonton as the West Coast, but it's closer than Boston. And I think he's really, really pleased with how things are so far.
I don't know if you want to do a Tocchet, or if you don't have to, but is there a guy that you're saying, all right, let's pick it up?
It's so early in camp. It's tough to
Too
say.
early.
Yeah, because the veteran guys, they know how to pace themselves in a good way past as young players. And I was there myself trying to make the Toronto Maple Leafs way back when. You're going hard in every drill 3 days before the first exhibition game because you have to. And so you're playing at pace, and then you get to the exhibition game, you're getting used to that pace, and then you're 3 exhibition games in, and you think you're doing pretty good, and then all the veterans come back and they know how to play, and the pace gets quicker, and then you've got to find it, and you're constantly chasing. So, some of the younger guys, they might feel that they've done some pretty good things so far, and it's just going to get incrementally tougher, games, 4, 5, and 6 of the preseason. Forget about the first 10 games of the regular season. That's another jump. And then it goes from there. So just a cautionary tale for anybody that's looked good as a young player now. The walls close in, the time disappears. As a guy had said to me when I was trying to make it, hey, you're taking steaks off my table. I'm not going to let it happen.
Yeah, the vets know how to pace themselves, right? Also, especially
It's a long season. They certainly do.
Especially training camp. Here's an interesting one. Petey, Elias Pettersson, not the best postseason. Didn't have the offensive productivity that everybody was hoping for, whether it's special teams or even strength. Did we ever come up with kind of a definitive theory, or was there ever any discussion as to, okay, this might have been what the deal was, or does it really even matter at this point? Unless, of course, history repeats itself.
Yeah, obviously he's got a lot to prove with the new contract. And last year, I think the way that I look at it is it was one of those years where it just looked like you couldn't catch a break. And I realize he signed for a whole lot of money, so that's maybe catching a break, but he earned it. But my point is, it seemed that his frustration changed from the start of the season, people asking about his contract, to the middle of the season that, there's a contract going to be signed, is not going to be signed. Then it's finally signed. And you would think there's a sense of relief, but then the puck's not going in the net. And then all of a sudden that frustration comes back. So I think it was just, the multitude of frustrations, if I could say it that way, that never went away. And so the body language that he had in the last 10 games of the season, when he'd miss a chance that normally would go in, you could feel his pain, you could feel his frustration. But it's the game's not very forgiving, and especially in the playoffs. If you're, slumping, then people are going to play you harder because they don't want to be the guy that lets you get back into your groove. So a lot of learning for him. I think he's really matured from as the season went on, and then through the summer with talked about his training and ramping things up. And so far, again, early, but he's got players that he can put the puck on their stick and they can put it in the net. So even if he's not scoring himself, he's bringing the offense.
And as coaches often say, especially when teams slump, no one's going to feel sorry for you.
No, I tell you, I mean, you get a bit of runway, obviously, but sooner or later they'll say, we've shown you all the video, we've told you all the things we need to tell you. This is on you. And so we'll see how it unfolds. And that's for any of the top players in the league. But Pettersson, I think, is understanding what's around him for offensive weapons. And that is something that's going to energize him.
Last one here, personnel wise, and then I'm just going to ask you a silly question at the end. But the depth of the D, and they got bigger. Like it's
Yeah,
amazing. They got rid of big guys, they got bigger guys. And I always harken back to the 16 final when San Jose was exploited by Pittsburgh speed, and particularly they were exploited on the bottom pair. It was Brendan Dillon and Justin Braun. One's like 6'4", 6'5", the other 6'2", big fellas, 225, 210, and they got worked. Um, I see, Tyler Myers has somehow come around with the fans and the media over the last, I don't know, what, year and a half, where he used to be a favorite whipping boy. I could see Forbert, that happening to him, with some decision making and mobility, and he's paired with another big guy. I'm just, that would be my one, like, this could, I could see some rocky road ahead at times.
I think that other teams would look at the Canucks defense and say what you said. Oh man, they're big.
Yeah,
Like after you get past Hughes and Hronek,
right,
and when you play against those two, you never touch the puck. And
right.
then you will go up against Susie and Myers and Darnay and Forbert, and if you put Juleson in there as well. And you're dealing with a lot of size.
Right.
I think where they won't get exploited is that those bigger guys, they have experience.
Yeah.
I mean, Desharnais went to the Stanley Cup final. I think that he really acquitted himself. And I remember watching his first early games and thought, okay, the game's going pretty fast and his feet aren't. But it seems like he's gotten that solved.
Yeah.
And one of the things I've noticed with the coaching staff, they really are working with the positioning of the defenseman, how they pivot, when they, reach in for the poke, how to use that free hand, not getting in those positions where they're going to have to take 3 steps one way, 3 steps the other, and then back again. They're kind of angling. So they're using their size for themselves rather than the other players using their size against themselves. And again, it comes down to coaching. The Canucks are one of the faster teams, I think. So you talk about them getting exploited speed wise. I think it's going to be the shoe on the other foot.
By the way, Adam Foote, who
Yeah,
coaches them, not exactly a slouch in terms of talent and ability, and won Stanley Cups with Colorado, but also big guy. He was a big man, and he was nasty. He was a
he was
nasty,
really nasty, and
nasty.
he couldn't be more opposite off the ice. Just
Right,
a genuine gem of a human being.
right. All right. Well, we'll keep an eye on the D, and of course, obviously, matchups and combinations will change and all that good stuff, and game management, particularly on home ice. All right. Will they top 109 points? There's my silly question.
Yeah, not so silly. Jim Rutherford said that he thinks that this team, as it sits, where it will come out of training camp, might be better than the one last year. So he's got a lot of experience. So I'm going to say, they're going to either match it or 1 or 2 points ahead of that.
I like it.
Yeah.
DT, Tommy Boy, Tomer, whatever we call you, you're outstanding.
Hey, I thought I was
And
just out sitting.
out entering season two, you took over for a legend, and you're kicking ass. So
Thanks.
congratulations on that. And you're, of course, helps to work with one of the best in business with Shorty. John Shorthouse is always prepared and always has a lot of research in his back pocket. So have
Yeah.
some fun. We'll look forward to seeing you.
Thanks for having me on. We'll catch up along the way.